morning and welcome to our open meeting of the New York State Commission on Ethics and Lobbying in Government. Most of the commission is here in Albany, and one member will be joining us shortly in New York. I would call upon our executive director to report to the forum.
Thank you, Chair Austin. Let me say that this meeting is being held in accordance with the provisions of Section 94 of the Executive Law and Article 7 of the Public Officers Law, the Open Meeting Law. The conference room we were using here in Albany and offices at 540 Broadway are open to the public during open session, as is our conference room in the New York State Conference Center at 25 Beaver Street in New York. And I see that we have a quorum of commissioners here at the Albany Conference.
Very good, thank you. Next item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from the November 20 public session. Are there any corrections or amendments to the minutes as presented? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Commissioner Cardozo and Commissioner Groenewegen, second. All in favor? Opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you. Now we have our report from staff.
Thank you. I call the Commission's attention to the operations update, which is under tab B in the agenda. As we have been doing for most of the year, the report is organized so that we have the last, most current month, November 24, in the first column, comparison to the prior month, October 2024, comparison then to a year ago, November 2023, year to date for this year, and comparable year to date for 2023. So we can see how numbers are progressing as we move through our work. In contrast to what I've been doing up to now this year, I'm going to try to move through the operations report very quickly because we have a very heavy agenda today. But please interrupt me if you have any questions. I will call upon staff if they have anything really significant to add to the report, but otherwise we'll just move through it for the sake of expediency. So page 1 is the investigations and enforcement report. As you can see, as we had last month, 19 tips, complaints, and reports were received. 3 matters were opened with 15-day letters. 6 polling matters were closed. The net is 173 matters pending and 56 open investigations. That's a net change of 12 over the prior month. Moving on to page 2, which is the ethics report. Something of a decline, a slight one, from the prior month, 112 overall total guidance requests were received. That compares to 58 a year ago. And if you look at the total numbers, you'll see that the group has received 1,170 inquiries and guidance requests or approval requests this year. That compares with fewer than 700 a year ago. So we're continuing to move far ahead of where we were previously, and we have increased staffing to accommodate that. Next page 3, lobbying. November was a bi-monthly filing month, so you'll see that huge increase in the number of bi-monthlies and bi-monthly amendments that were filed, over 6,500 in the month. Modest increase in number of lobbyists and clients in that period of time. We're getting near the end of the biannual registration period. December is the last month, and a new period starts on January 1st. And you can see that commensurate with the fact that it was a bi-monthly reporting period. Number of inquiries increased. And we're running ahead, although beginning of the year we were somewhat lower level. Overall inquiries are in excess of 36,000 so far. And we're poised to get to or maybe exceed 40,000 by the end of the year. Next, we have financial disclosure statements. We're now a month past the November 15th academic filing date deadline for academic filers. As I noted previously, over 4,700 notices were sent out to academic filers in October in advance of the filing date. You'll see in the chart under tab C that of the total of 6,519 potential academic filers, failure to file notices went out to over 2,000 of those filers. The difference between the 6,500 plus technical academic filers and the 4,700 or so advance notices that went out reflects the number of exemptions that have been granted to classes or filers. So the actual projected number of academic filers is closer to the 4,700 point. I'm going to ask Melinda, do you have anything to add in terms of notices that have gone out and responses that have come back?
The only thing that I want to add is that I did issue notices of failure to file to academic filers and non-academic filers on December 3rd, which totaled 2,498 failed to files issued, of which 2,055 were to academic filers. And as of this morning, we just have over 1,000 that are delinquent.
All right, and that's out of the estimated 4,700 total that we're expecting?
Yes.
Thank you.
How different is that from last year?
Last year, I issued a little less. Last year, I issued 1,980 failed to files to academic filers. This year, it was 2,055. So it was just up a little bit from last year, but not by a huge number.
And it ended up that we had full compliance at the end?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And again, we are working on methodologies. Training is clearly part of it to reduce the number of late filings that we're seeing. Among other things, it's a huge strain on staff resources to have to chase down those who are late. Inevitably, they do file. It's rare that we get to the point of having to actually bring an enforcement action. It's particularly true with respect to the academic filers. But it is something that's time-consuming for the group. Training, which is on page 5, a couple of things. The training group has continued to increase the number of trainings that we are providing directly to state workforce. Also working very closely with ethics officers and training specialists at the various agencies, the over 380 agencies that have employees who are required to comply with the requirement. Overall, the numbers are a little bit down in November for total trainings taken by individuals. That probably largely reflects the fact that we have the Thanksgiving holiday. Notices have gone out, reminders to across the state to all agencies, and all employees who we believe have not completed training to get their training in if they haven't had some since the inception of the requirement in 2022, and to get that done before the end of the year. In addition, we have added, as requested by the commission, at the November meeting, in the bottom row on page 5 on the training statistics, you'll see that we've broken in categories of lobbyists, lobbying clients, and lobbyist clients who have taken ethics training as required by both the lobbying law and by the executive law. So you'll see quite a substantial number. We're still at well over 80% who have complied with the requirements. And of course, new certification requirements are moving into effect shortly. We don't yet have the ability to generate those statistics by month. ITS is working on that, but we did have them very quickly set up a module so that we could report out in the aggregate the breakout of lobbyists, clients, and lobbyist clients. As you know, many clients have in-house lobbying capabilities, and that's why we have to have 3 categories to cover that part of it. Is there anything else to add, Marlena? I don't think we have Megan. Marlena? All right, we can come back to it if there's anything. We did add, in addition, at the request of the commission, which wanted to see the progress overall. You see in footnote 10, we've included the aggregate figure for total. These are workforce trainings that have been completed and reported to us. And the total is 317,538 based on the statistics that have come in more or less through the end of November. That means, particularly with the year-end push, we should be coming very close to, if not exceeding, our target of 330,000 individual trainings conducted by the end of the year. There's an asterisk on that, or a caveat. There are going to be instances in the data where there are individuals, because of the diligence of their agency trainers, who have taken more than one training. We know many agencies are working very hard to comply with the annual requirements. Although the commission set a target of 1 training by the end of this year and 2 completed trainings by the end of 2025, many agencies have already implemented annual training. And it alternates. It's a live 1 year, and the statute and our policies permit an on-demand refresher course in the intervening year. Many agencies are finding it more efficient to provide live trainings each year. And that's, of course, the gold standard. Another thing that's happening, and Marlena, if she's able to log in, can provide more detail on it. We are working with outside vendors to develop a way to expand the reach of the on-demand course. Currently, the on-demand course works, the on-demand ethics training course for the workforce is working on learning management system platforms. It doesn't work because of the preventive measures we built into it to ensure that individuals complete it. We can't just mount it on an ordinary website and put it out there. So we're working with vendors to develop a way to add that. We're working with those same vendors also in response to commissioner requests to add the same kind of, you can't move on from section to section unless you complete the section and pass the little test that you have to complete, to add that feature to the lobbying ethics course as well. So we're doing that on 2 fronts. Unless there are any questions, we can move on to our compliance audit and review group. As previously noted, the group has now completed the targeted FDS reviews, and they're now moving on to the random reviews. As Garrett Perrin, our Deputy Director of Compliance Audit Review, informed you last time, we expect before the next cycle begins to complete all of our planned random reviews, both on the lobbying side. The FDS side, we've again completed the targeted reviews. Our goal at minimum is, as we've done in the past, to, in total, complete a total of 2,000 audits and reviews of lobbying filings and financial disclosure statement filings. It's an ambitious target. We've expanded the group, but we think it's quite achievable. And the augmented audit system that we put in place, Team A Plus, is in the process of being extended so that it works not only on the audit side, it will also be working on the financial disclosure statement side to make the work of the group more efficient and more timely. Is there any questions? Commissioner?
It seems to me, though, the numbers are down significantly compared to last year on some of these audits. Is there an explanation for that, or am I misreading this?
No, we are in, well, on, not the audits. The audits were running ahead. Last year, 2023, we're at 616 at this point in the cycle. We're down at 765. Those are the random audits of lobbying. With respect to FDS reviews, the group has completed, it was an election year, which means we're auditing candidates for the legislatures all statewide, both in the general election and in the primary election. So the number goes up substantially. And now that they've completed that, and that's, you can see that's quite a robust number. It's 989 completed. And they're done compared to 358 in 2023. So the overall numbers are quite solid, even though the group spent a lot of time with the implementation of the new software. So we're doing well. And we've been shorthanded, and which is about to end. Any other questions?
Anything else? Moving on.
And that brings us to page 7, Public Information Office, quite busy. 13 requests, 9 fulfilled, all on time. It's a big increase in the number of documents we provided, 1,513 in the month as compared with 267 in the previous month. We're over 50,000 in terms of pieces of paper provided to FOIL requesters, and the group is moving along on time.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions on this portion of the report?
Do you have a sense of the type of constituents who request FOIL?
I sure do.
We do.
Emily?
We have reporters, of course, who request things. We also have, this year, there was a lot of people requesting candidates. There were some frequent foilers of candidates, and I'm assuming they're like opposition research doing that. We also have some of our frequent foilers who continue to foil us, and then we do get people just like they don't know how to access their FDS online. So they're asking for a copy of their FDS, or we get, various agencies have their own inspector generals, and they'll be filing, people's foils through that process. So it's kind of a mix. Right now, we don't have like one person that is monopolizing all of our time. We did just have a really big request for all of the 2011 legislators' FDSs, which we took over the FDSs for legislators in 2012, and we had these on a CD, but we had never posted them because we weren't responsible for them in that year. But because the person had requested them, we had to provide them, which means we had to go through all 212 and redact them. So we just got that one out, which is good. But we're steady for sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, moving along, budget update.
Yeah, and before do that, I do want to mention that we had 4 representatives of the agency who attended the recent meeting of Council on Government Ethics Laws, National Organization of State Ethics and Lobbying, and in some instances, election regulators. Carol Quinn, our Director of Lobbying, and Kavita Bhatt, our Deputy General Counsel, both sat on panels, and that is a recognition of the leading role that our agency plays nationally among state regulators, both in lobbying and in ethics laws administration. And it's an important thing to acknowledge. I thank staff for going out. It takes up a lot of their time, but it's important not only to learn what others are doing, but to be able to share with the larger ethics and lobbying regulatory community the kind of work that we do, which really is outstanding. Anyways, coming back to the budget update, as I repeatedly said, because of staggered recruiting, we're going to end the year with a modest surplus, a little bit over 400,000 is current target on that. Next year will be very different because we will be staffed up. And we have, as I previously noted, asked for a budget increase for next year, approximately $844,000. We're in a wait and see mode. We're working with our team at DLB. We've got our fingers crossed we'll get a positive response, and we're ready to provide any additional information as we have in the past to them. We've explained why we need to have that increase. It's really essential. I mean, the work that you're seeing now reflects increased staffing, still some increases to come. But we want to maintain that level. We want to increase the work that we are able to do, both in terms of its reach and its comprehensiveness. So that's under attachment D, commissioner per diem payments.
Can I just ask?
Yes.
What is the percent, how can I ask the question? I want to know the current staffing profile a bit more in terms of the number of staff that we want to achieve based on where we are now.
We want to achieve a head count of 68. We are currently, I believe, 6 units below that count.
So 62.
I believe that's where we are. Mariana?
Right.
I need the,
We're at like around 50, 54, 55.
55 versus 68.
Yes.
Thank you.
we got a little bit more to do. Any other questions? Next item, per diems. These will be paid at the end of the year, so I'm going to read the numbers that we currently have. They may move a little bit before they're actually paid. And these cover, for all commissioners, the October commission meeting, as well as preparation time for most commissioners for September, and then for a couple of commissioners for other periods, additional periods of time. And I'll note those. So Chair Austin projected per diem, next per diem payment is $3,227.22. Vice Chair Ayers, $2,875.76. Commissioner Caraballo is $5,591.96, and that covers, in addition to the October meeting, preparation time in June, July, August, and September. Commissioner Karras, $1,917.19. Commissioner Cardozo, $2,875.76. Commissioner Edwards, $2,907.71. Commissioner Grunwald, $575.18. That's just for the October meeting. And then Commissioner James, $1,469.86, and that includes preparation time in both August and September. The projected total is $21,440.64, and that brings our fiscal year to date total to $167,272.06.
I have a question. At the last meeting, I think it was in public session, we talked about having a list, for the commissioners to have in advance a listing of what you just reported. And am I correct to understand, if I understand what you're doing now, the reason why you're putting this out without our having reviewed it in our board book is because it's an annual number?
No, it's a projected number.
So what I mean is, and my question is that, are you reporting it out without our having viewed it in our board book as we requested last month? My sense is you're doing it because you're reporting it as you're incorporating it in your report for your annual budget, because we're in the budget section. Is that why?
Well, that's one of the reasons for monitoring it, and we are tracking, as you'll see, in the budget report, the per diems as well as all the other payments, both on the personnel and non-personnel side. No, but the reason I'm reading it rather than putting it in the board book is under the resolution on per diem payments. We're called upon to publicly post and include in the board book
Which
the actual paid amounts.
Which
These
I-
amounts have not been paid yet.
Right, that's what I'm concerned about. The last meeting, we had a long conversation about this with regard to reporting it out without our having the opportunity to read it in our board book so that we can look at it and assess questions. So my question is, you didn't do that this time, but I'm assuming it's not because you're not responding to what we requested and agreed upon, but because it's part of the report on your budget. Is that what's happening? And I'm comfortable if that's indeed the case. But again, I just don't think that you're reporting out something that I haven't seen in the board book.
Correct, and you haven't seen it in the board book because they haven't been paid. The board book, once they're paid, we put it in the board book, and all commissioners will see it in advance, and then they can check what they've been paid against what's reflected in our figures.
So how is that
But
different?
these are projected payments based on the submissions that, two things, submissions that commissioners have made to us for preparation time. And then for the staff calculations of commissioner participation in commission meetings and committee meetings,
Okay,
where staff is tracking that
I'm
time.
comfortable with all the tracking and how you've done that. That isn't my concern. And so I guess maybe you could help me understand how you interpreted the outcome of the discussion we had regarding how this is documented. What's different between what you're doing now and what we agreed to? Maybe I'm misunderstanding. But the
Yeah,
outcome,
and I may be misunderstanding. I will go back to the minutes and review that. There's, I believe it's quite feasible for us, if you want us to share before we put the time into the time management system.
So it's,
You know, what-
aren't in process, and they're usually off by tens of dollars here and there from, when we run the figures, which is why I believe it's, executive director is reading them and not providing them as actually paid figures.
I know, I understand all that. But I'm just saying, I thought we resolved how we would deal with that at the last meeting, and that didn't, that's not occurring right now.
Is it fair to say that if it's in the book, it's already been paid? If it's not in the book, it's still
Correct.
in process? Is there a way that before it becomes paid, that the commissioners have an opportunity to review it?
Even if you say that, even you say that it's projected, or it's, it's a draft, it will be updated. But to hear this information, again, blind, without seeing it, it just makes me uncomfortable. And I thought we resolved it. But my concern is we talked about it, we resolved it, but you're reporting it out again in the same fashion. And maybe I'm just missing what we agreed upon the last time.
Yeah, we said we would break it out by month.
We did.
And I didn't read it by month. I explained for each commissioner which months were involved. So we have that and we post it now. We are breaking it out by month. So that
That we did.
distinctions among months will be taken care of. So we've implemented that. If commissioners want to see the calculations based upon their submissions and staff's calculations based on attendance at committee and commission meetings, we can circulate. I think we can typically circulate that in advance. We'll just have to move up our dates on that.
It just would be helpful because, again, we have resolved it by breaking it out by month and by what we're, and the various categories that we get paid under. That's okay with me. It's just that sometimes, and we're trying to work on it by submitting it more on a more consistent basis, but sometimes there's a big
Yeah,
sometimes there is a discrepancy between various times the commissioners have put in. And it needs to be, I just think it would be helpful if the public understood that. If I don't see it beforehand, I can't assess that and be prepared. I'm only asking that we have some way of having an advance notice in terms of what you plan to report out. I don't want to hear it first thing at a public meeting without having had the information to review. So if you want to give it to us as a draft and not include in the board book, that's fine. But I don't want to hear it. I don't think I don't feel comfortable with hearing it for the first time at the public session. Or anything that we're reporting out before the meeting. And we've discussed it at the last meeting.
Basically, this is just a calculation of what has been submitted.
Correct.
All right. And we have what we've submitted, so we know what the number is. So maybe what we can do is if any commissioner would like to just hear the number in advance to compare it to their notes, maybe that would be the way to do it.
Individually as opposed to sending out to everyone?
Which would be more easy to do.
They're all calculated at once when we have the figures, so.
All right, so before they go into the book or before they're announced, if we could just get an email. Thank you. Okay, moving on.
All right, we will make good notes. Next, the recruiting update, sort of hinted at. We have a number of positions we have been actively recruiting for, hence the disparity in the headcount and our aspirational goal. We have accepted and approved offers now with new compliance auditor for the compliance audit and review group, as well as a compliance analyst. So those are welcome additions to the group, and they will be starting in January. We have an accepted offer to a training assistant in the education group. That has to go through the BDA, the DOB approval process. That's been going pretty efficiently. So keeping our fingers crossed on that. We don't yet have candidates for training assistant positions. Again, we have approval now to work with temp agencies to provide that administrative support. And we have at least one candidate who is in process.
We did, but I think she backed out.
She backs out. So we're expanding both our search for, we made a judgment, we want to add an additional training assistant. We actually had two offers out. One individual got a better offer from a federal agency that we can't compete with. So we're still recruiting.
Do we anticipate if hopefully we prevail in the Cuomo case, a surge of applicants or a surge of needs by us because we'll have more matters to prosecute, et cetera?
The answer is certainly yes to both, or maybe yes to all three in terms of the outcome of the case and increased business and increased interest in coming to work for the agency. That has had an impact to some extent on our recruiting efforts. Part of it too is, pay structure. Government does not pay, as well as the private sector, particularly for many of the positions we're recruiting. But we're getting people who really are dedicated to public service. Those are the individuals we've been successful in recruiting. But we're actively pushing on the training side. So we do have another trainer coming in. So we'll be back to the staffing level we had until relatively recently. We want to expand that by an additional individual. We do want to bring in two admins to support the group. So we're back to recruiting for those positions and working with temp agencies. That's going to make a big difference. As I mentioned last time, we successfully recruited a research data analyst who will be working across the board in the executive team, and she will be starting at the beginning of January.
All right, two things. First, I know that Commissioner Caraballo has joined us in New York, and she did so probably about 15, 20 minutes ago before we got into the the budget update. So welcome, Commissioner Caraballo, and Commissioner Edwards had a question.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, you said that for the education department, we have a slot for a trainer, which is about to be fulfilled, and that you are looking to expand it by 2 additional assistant trainers?
We have always had in the plan 2 training assistants, those administrative assistants who help out with the heavy data burden that thus far the trainers have been bearing.
So they're down 2 people.
We've been down 3 people. We had a
people.
resignation, but we're also expanding the group. So we're adding,
New
we're adding another trainer position
So we're looking at 3
to
assistants
bring
and 1 trainer.
the group up, as well as 2
Okay.
assistants. And we'll, if we can't find eligible candidates for the training assistant positions quickly, and we haven't been able to, we're going to be using temporary support. And that may lead to recruiting as well, but we've got to get that staffed up.
Thank you.
We also have open positions in the investigation and enforcement division. We have open positions in the lobbying group. We have potential open positions in the financial disclosure group, but we're waiting to see how that shakes out. And we may adjust accordingly. But we want to get up to that 68
Mhm.
sooner rather than later.
Anything else on recruiting? Moving along to Executive Law 94 1D.
We're moving along in the process. We're completing the diagnostic phase, if you will. And then we'll be moving on to the next phase in the process, which will be remedial assessments. In the interim, executive staff is taking steps to do some quick things that can be done to address some of the observations, recommendations, concerns that came out of the survey and the assessment of it. And we'll be reporting back to the commission in the coming months as we implement those. But a number of things having to do with communication, improving some of the materials we have, looking at training in various ways. But that's to do in the short term. We don't want those kinds of improvements in what we do to be held up while we're taking the broader look overall. Commission's enabling statutes or regulations and advisory opinions.
Okay, any questions? But just as a point of procedure, if you raise your hand and I give you a nod, I have you on a list, so you don't have to keep raising your hand. So I will call on you in the order in which I get you. Okay, it's up to me now, the chair's report. First of all, with regard to the legislative agenda, I've asked Commissioner Cardozo, and he's graciously agreed that we're going to put that on for after the executive session. So we'll hold off on that. With regard to our recent migration to the ethics email through ITS, I speak for myself, and I think most of you who commented to me that the transition was a lot smoother than the first time we tried it, a lot clearer. And we had a young man, I assume a young man, because it's computers, it's old people can't do that. Kudos to Tahir Johnson from ITS, who did an astonishingly good, patient, thorough job in indoctrinating us. And I think whoever his supervisors are should get a word from the commission that we were really very, very pleased with his efforts, his professionalism, his sense of humor, which God knows he needed with me. Well, Commissioner Edwards and I share the same abilities with computers, I think. But really, he was incredible, and he's deserving of praise, and his file should reflect our thanks for that.
Can you, I could just send his contacts again? Someone gave it to me and I lost it.
Well, in the same vein, I also We should add Maureen Daly, who's
Yes.
on our staff, who's
Oh, yeah. she was-
been coordinating all of this.
My bad, I forgot to include her.
So,
Yes.
Great job.
But we've already spoken to her supervisor, so just now. All right, so next, in reviewing the minutes from the last meeting, we had something of an issue with regard to whether or not the chair has the ability to refer an item to committee without the approval of the commission. And the answer came back from council that no, that there does not. Any commissioner with the approval of the balance of the commission can refer something. And that is inconsistent, I think, with, and that, by the way, that provision is 6A of our motion with regard to committees, and that's 24-02 of our resolutions. However, the chair does have the power, without permission, to create a working group without permission from anyone. So it seems inconsistent that the chair can create a working group without permission, but can't send something to any standing committee to just look. So I'm going to ask the staff to please draft something to resolve that inconsistency for our consideration at our next meeting. Some of the other things that I've noted over the past month that I think we need to also consider is creating a manner of working with investigation and enforcement, thank you, is setting up a procedure for identifying de minimis cases so that we don't spend a lot of time on them where they're really relatively simple in terms of what they are. Now, obviously, we have to define that in a guideline, but I think getting those off our docket as a large item and putting them on as a de minimis item, I think might be a good idea. Also, we were talking in terms of procedures as to how we might be able to more quickly and efficiently address closing memos from I&E. So I would hope that we can do that in a relatively short order. And with the commission's permission, I would move that we assign that question to work with Brian and Michael to our administration committee to review that and come up with a plan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you. Next, I'd love to hear more, perhaps over lunch, from Carol and Kavita as to that trip and you know what you came out of with from that. It sounds fascinating that we are recognized as participants on a higher level than just coming and listening. So thank you for doing that. As you recall, in an email I sent out about a month or so ago, I've asked Commissioner Groenewegen to act as our, I hate to use the word housekeeper, but a monitor of projects yet to be done. I think that works better. And that is pursuant to 7F of that same resolution we were discussing. And basically, the chair has the authority to designate one of the members of the commission to work with staff to maintain a list of pending items on which action by the commission is necessary. That can indicate to whom the tasks have been assigned, and we are supposed to get it 10 days prior to our meeting. Obviously, this was not quite the 10 days. And in fact, I don't think you all saw it before this morning, or most of you did not see it. It was posted?
No,
Right.
it's to be circulated to all commissioners within 10 days after each.
I'm sorry, after, my bad. So obviously, we're going to start using that, but what you have is a sample of what Commissioner Groenewegen prepared in anticipation of this meeting, just so we have an idea of what it is. Check it, make sure you have the same understanding, communicate with her, and she will make sure that, and with me, sit on it and make sure that it's moving. Commissioner?
Can I just add one quick thing? I think the list you prepared is great, Nancy, so thank you for that. I just wanted to add, my sense is that to add something to the list, we need either action by the chair or by the full commission, or staff telling us that there's something that staff puts on the list, right? But those are so in other words, we shouldn't just be emailing Nancy to say like, hey, let's add a bunch of things to it.
No, that wasn't my point.
Oh, I agree. I'm just clarifying my understanding for the.
Right.
I didn't think you were saying that, don't I?
No, when you, after the meeting, if you see something on the list and said, well, you also said we were going to do this on the list, that's what I'm talking about, not
Exactly.
gross changes. It's going to be fine tuning. And we'll stay, and the chairs and those who are assigned will be communicating with us in terms of what's going on, and we'll be able to hopefully keep a slightly tighter rein on what we're doing and stay focused. So Commissioner Groenweg, thank you for your initial effort, and I think this will work very well.
Can I just make
Please.
a couple of comments about the document? It is a draft. My goal in putting this together was to carry out the directive of the resolution, but as I understand it, the scope of what's to be on this list is limited to specific outstanding tasks that either require action by the whole commission, which would have something like an update on the status of the ongoing comprehensive review, or it would be specific matters that have been assigned to one of the standing committees, an ad hoc committee, or working group. So there's a record of that. And the third would be the kind of things that come up at commission meetings where there's a request from the commission back to staff for some kind of follow-up. That's what I think the scope of this list is to include. And my understanding is the purpose is twofold. The most important being to make sure that all members, all commissioners, and equally importantly, all staff know which commissioners, or in whichever capacity, be it as the whole or as on a member of a committee or a specific assignment from the chair, know who's doing what. And second, to ensure that there's a single record of what those outstanding tasks are, so that there isn't confusion as to what should be on the list or not. So to Commissioner Ayer's point, I think that's why I will, going forward, work with the chair and the executive director to compile what I think I've heard at this meeting and then get that out. And I think that should accomplish the end. A couple other things, though. Some of this is more significant than other items. But what I've tried to do is certain matters where the commission has asked staff to do something, and it's noted as done. I've added a note, like if you look at the second page, where we follow up with the evaluation forms post the comprehensive ethics training we did. That information was sent to us right after we asked for it electronically. And so I've added a note saying task completed and will be removed from the next log, just so that we have this ongoing list of old items. The other thing that I was considering doing is certain items in the task list are highlighted. They come through as gray on the copy. Those were things where I didn't know what the status was. But I think going forward, the conversation had with the chair and the executive director will make sure that kind of stuff is addressed in advance. So if anybody has any comments or objections or suggestions for improvement as to how we might go about doing this, I welcome them. And again, I say this is a draft, but hopefully
It's a good starting point.
10 days from today, 10 business days, we'll have a revised document.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions?
Honor about.
We're opening the champagne. Where is that?
You know, it's important work.
July.
Indeed. Any comments, questions? Good. Next, is, this is the last meeting of the year. And although it's, I'll have an opportunity towards the end, but I do want to just take a moment to note the amazing staff that we have had the privilege of working with, and thank you for your really untiring support of what we do and dealing with a bunch of alphas who are well, sometimes trying to push in the same direction, but not always successfully. But you have, kept the ship going through some very difficult waters, and I know I believe I speak for all of the commissioners when I say to the staff, their families who tolerate their being as dedicated as they are. Thank you so much. Have a happy, healthy holiday, and we look forward to working with you again next year. And I'll probably say that again because it's worth saying twice. And with that, I will now entertain a motion to go into executive session pursuant to Public Officers Law, Section 105, and Executive Law, Section 9411, to address matters concerning employment of personnel, pending litigation, and investigative and enforcement matters that are confidential pursuant to Section 94 of the Executive Law. So moved by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Cardozo. Any all in favor? Opposed? I will go into executive session then.
You're live.
All right, we're back in public session. I call upon our executive director to give us a statement as to the actions in executive session.
Thank you, Chair Austin. In executive session, the commission discussed matters related to litigation and legal advice. The commission discussed two applications for an exemption from post-employment restrictions pursuant to Public Officers Law, Section 73(8)(b). The commission discussed matters related to ethics and lobbying guidance. The commission authorized steps in several investigative matters. The commission closed 17 matters, 4 of which were residual J-code matters, 13 code matters, and discussed several other investigative matters.
Okay. Thank you. We have 2 requests from New York State Homes and Community Renewal with regard to an exemption under Public Officers Law, Section 73(8)(b), close paren, to approve contracts with former employees. Do I have a motion to approve those requests?
So moved.
Commissioner Cardozo moves, Vice Chair Ayers seconds. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Dolly, Commissioner
Yes.
Carvalho, you're small on the screen, so we're having a little difficulty seeing you when you raise your hand. So if you could just chime in, we'd appreciate it.
Yes.
Okay.
If I'm saying no. If I'm saying no.
We don't need a microphone for that, but thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we have the proposed advisory opinion on legislative law, Section 1-E. Is there any discussion on that?
The legislative agenda?
Which is that?
No.
Which is that one?
Lobbying,
I don't know.
having to do with
I don't know.
legislative,
Yes.
with regard to registration within 10 days of lobbying,
Lobbying.
contracts, sorry.
Amending the
Is there a
legislature.
motion to approve?
So moved.
Commissioner Cardozo, Commissioner Carroll seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Unanimous. Okay. We've all seen the calendar for January to June as revised in the book. Anybody have any issues with it?
It's not revised. I see the regular, wait, hello? Hi. I see the dates haven't changed then, is that correct?
The change was the February meeting went back to the 19th. We had moved it forward a week, but it's back to the 19th. Otherwise,
sorry.
it's unchanged. Last.
And it's Exhibit I. Okay.
Yeah,
Motion to approve.
So moved.
I just want to hear what the changes were. What the changes
What you saw recently, the only change is the March meeting, the February meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
And there was a change from the April meeting from what was originally put forth, and that was because the meeting fell during Passover. All right, so
I have
We
a
have a
problem with the
motion, all-
23rd. Can't hear me.
are you all in favor of the motion as, the calendar as amended?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, thank you. Commissioner
Oh.
Cardozo?
All right.
No.
Commissioner Caravaggio
Yeah,
opposes this.
I have a problem on the 23rd, so I don't know, I thought I looked at this.
It's not Passover, Dolly, it's fine. We'll deal with it separately. We now have the legislative matters.
All right, the Legislative Commission met on a number of different occasions following the public meeting to discuss our legislative agenda. And as set out in Exhibit E, the four of us, Seymour, Dolly, and Jim and I, all recommend the following, and I want to note with a great appreciation for Emily's help on all this. So what we recommend is that the 9 items in the tentative legislative agenda that we had all previously put forward, that's listed on Exhibit A to the report, be our legislative agenda for the coming year. Those are 7 standard items that we've previously endorsed. Actually, 9 items, but 7 of them I don't think are worth discussing. The 8th item relates to the question of whether or not we should add penalty, where the statute should be specifically amended to add violation to codify sexual harassment. We have in the past, as a commission, previously moved forward and sought to challenge people who have violated sexual harassment against public state employees. We've had a couple of litigations that we think would improve things if we made it specific in the agenda, in the legislation to add sexual harassment. But we have been doing it successfully anyway. But we think we should add it if we can. We don't think that will hurt us in any way by proposing it, since we've already primarily succeeded it. But let me add at the same time that there are some organizations that have proposed that not only should we go after people who are guilty of sexual harassment, but any other harassment, gender harassment, and the like. We have decided that should be further studied. The number of good government groups have suggested that we do that. But we'd like to find out really what the burden on us would be. In the report itself, you'll see a chart that staff has put together that shows there's lots of other sexual harassment claims, not sexual harassment claims, only some of which relate to sexual harassment. So before we endorse this as a matter of our legislation proposal, we think we need to look at this in more depth. And so we don't recommend that it be done now. The 9th part of our legislative agenda relates to our previous proposal to amend the open meetings law to make sure that we can have a meeting without the need, at least for committee meetings that don't have a decision-making authority, that we don't need to have a physical access requirement, as we all know exists today. We continue to strongly endorse that. A number of good government groups, in addition to agreeing with us on that, suggests that we should expand this to include not just public access without, not just require no physical access when the committee is not making decisions, but even when the committee is making decisions, you still should not have a physical access requirement. They would add that you should have one physical access requirement someplace. The committee would at least have one physical access. We think this is a detail on which reasonable people can differ, but as a legislative matter now, we're obviously, if this bill goes anyplace, as we hope it does, we're going to end up having a discussion with the legislators. And so we think our proposal as it's presented should be left. Let Reinvent Albany and some other groups push this a little harder, and hopefully we can get into a discussion with the legislature about the specific details. Most importantly, we want to try to eliminate the physical access requirement. So that's our proposal. Now, there have been a number of other proposals that have been made over the last couple of years, including a number that were made at the commission meeting, and it discussed at length in the report. And many of them have a good deal of apparent merit in them, but we need to do more detailed examination of that. I mean, just for example, there's a proposal that small lobbying groups should only have to file lobbying reports twice a year rather than bi-monthly because of the burden on them. We think we should see, is that really a burden to spend what is appears to be a small amount of time to fill out a lobbying report. So we want to do some study on that now. There's a number of proposals that suggest that lobbying filings clarify whether the lobbyists support or oppose the positions on various bills. There's apparently 5 states that require a lobbyist to say whether the lobbyist supports or opposes the bill. We want to find out whether that's really been meaningful turned out to be meaningful legislation before we endorse it in our agenda. There's I could go through spelled out in detail on this report, various other recommendations. And again, we suggest that they be studied further. There are some that suggest that we suggest that they not be further studied. One proposal was that we should allow a public to respond if a requester makes a statement inconsistent with our advice. We don't think that we need legislation. This would go to the proposal that we've just spent the last half an hour talking about. And if we issue this report, we don't need legislation on it. And some various other proposals that we suggest are not necessary to get involved in. So I could go on for a good length of time. I want to express my appreciation the hard work of the committee and Emily and her staff for doing this. And we recommend that we vote to endorse our the 9 items in our legislative agenda.
Any questions?
Yes, so I feel like I'm in an awkward position, given the amount of time that's remaining and the urgency of getting something passed. My view, as I've said repeatedly in the past, is that the full commission would need to have a full discussion of these issues. That I was opposed to having a legislative committee because I thought I couldn't imagine that any commissioner would feel comfortable deferring to others' judgment on questions about the legislative agenda. And now that it's December, I think Coley will be in an awkward position if we don't have a legislative agenda. But I appreciate the work of the committee and staff's work in presenting thoughts on this. But a lot of the staff comments on these proposals are things like, committee decided this was unnecessary. Well, okay, but I'm a commissioner too. I want to have a conversation about that and hear why. And I think that, particularly for items that we punted on last year, so that staff would have more time to look at it. Honestly, I feel kind of embarrassed if I haven't been able to come up with a clear analysis of what I think of those issues, given more than a year to do it. So I'm not sure what to do about that.
What I would suggest, and Emily and I briefly discussed this, I think part of the problem was that, we changed the date of the public meeting to November this year. We really then ran out of time as a practical matter in order to get the legislative agenda. So Emily and I had a tentative discussion about this the other day, that next year in setting out the calendar, we should set this out with giving ourselves a little bit more time. But it's given the practicalities of where we are now, and I do think the committee has worked very hard, and I appreciate what you said. But I just don't think that there's much more as a practical matter, given where we are today, that we can do much.
Oh, I completely agree. I have thoughts on the merits of this, but I don't think there's much reason. My question is, I feel a lot of hesitation as a commissioner to vote for a legislative agenda I haven't thought through. So the question for me is, at this point, there's not much left except to vote it up or down. And I don't know how I can vote it up without having thought through.
So these are last year's 9 items that are on here.
Oh, I'm comfortable with the items that are.
Yeah, so those are the 9 items that are on here. And because of the work that we were doing with the comprehensive review, with the survey, and then we pushed back the meeting, the public hearing, everything, it kind of got a little jumbled up. And I think we now have a better defined path forward to do the further research. I think Sandy has laid it out in the staff comments of what we're going to do and the status of those things and how we're reaching out to certain groups to see what information they have. And we've talked with, when we were at the conference, well, not me, but when Carol was at the conference talking to counterparts. So I think we have a better plan moving forward this year. But I do want to make clear that the 9 proposals you did think out and we had last year, and other ones aren't on the table for vote today, per se, to be part of the legislature.
Well, but the only reason they're not is that we haven't had the chance to.
But there's nothing also to let me add, that while we're going to try to get this done out in the next couple of weeks, there's nothing to preclude us 2 weeks later from suggesting we add an item A, B, or C.
We did that last year. We had something in March.
Procedurally, is there any problem, or will the legislature look at it with a jaundiced eye if in February we send them a supplemental?
No, as long as when we meet with them, we have our full things and priorities that we want to talk about. We wouldn't want to add things after we meet with them, because then we lost our chance to talk to them about it, really. We'd be asking for a second meeting, which would not be an efficient use of their time. So I think as long as we meet with them after we have our full agenda, which I'd recommend we shoot for start reaching out in early January to get the meeting scheduled for early February before they go on break. And before they focus on budget. That would be my recommendation. So we do have another opportunity at, say, the January meeting to say, okay, let's add this, and then we could just add it if people vote on it at the gym.
I appreciate the suggestion. My concern is that, the 9 are 9 priorities. They're not 9 yes or no's. And so I don't know how to agree that those 9 should be our, one thing we've talked about with Sandy repeatedly is, well, the thing about correcting misstatements, it may be a good idea, but it shouldn't be on there because we only have so much room on the legislative agenda for those priorities. So I agree we've already thought through those 9, but whether those are more important than some of the other ones that we haven't thought through feels to me like an implication of voting to embrace those.
And we could
No,
amend.
no, but it's a
next meeting.
dynamic process. We are actively collecting information now. These couple of bill proposals that we've talked about, taking over the broader discrimination docket, for example, expanded reporting, whether lobbying submissions should be more specific about position taken about lobbyists. We're collecting information on all of those. And we're working with other groups to acquire that information. It's not as simple a process as one might think. So we will be in a position to provide additional thoughts on those. And I think the point is we can revise the priorities if it turns out that there's a basis for doing that.
And I want
Factual basis.
And I want to be clear, I'm not criticizing staff for not getting answers because I know staff did a lot of work and I don't know what the discussion was. I'm not criticizing the committee or Michael, who I'm sure would have preferred to start this earlier in this meeting and to actually leave time for a full, commission discussion. So I talk a lot in meetings. I'm as responsible as anybody. I guess I'm wondering if it would be too much to suggest a special meeting of the commission for January to make sure that we can actually do this in time, because I don't.
But I think the problem is we do have to do some homework before we can have any further meaningful discussion. So that you'll see in this report is some lengthy discussion that Sandy and staff pulled together on some of these other issues, and then we have to further analyze. And one of the concrete recommendations is to look further into the experience of other states on some of these proposals. And it's not something you can just spend an hour as a commission
But that's
talking
not
about.
but I'm talking more about the things where staff have already expressed views to the committee on things like the discrimination issue, and it's just that the rest of us.
But
haven't been
but
privy
the
to this.
discrimination issue is an example. There's lengthy analysis in this report of the statistics on what's going on in other states. And we have to study them.
Well, that's your view that we have to study them, but that's not necessarily my view because I haven't had the opportunity to ask questions about that. I actually don't agree that we need more. I think it might be useful, but I think my view is that there are ways to negotiate that problem, like saying we support it once it's funded and we'll have to get back to you when it's funded. But I think a lot of our position should be we support it if it's funded. But this is my point. This is a conversation that I think some of the people of the commissioners have already had with staff. The rest of us need to catch up on that. And if staff's view is, yeah, we shouldn't move on this. Okay, great. I want to have the chance to ask questions about that too. I'm
The
sorry, I'm
latest
talking
we'd
too
want to move on this is the January meeting, or else we'll be behind the ball for meeting with us.
So you want a special meeting?
I was floating the idea. If people are not able to do that, I totally.
Let's see what else, if anything, there is from the legislative committee that they might want us to add.
Well, presuming there's nothing, you still want a special meeting, because that's what we're getting at. We're getting to the holidays, we're getting to, a big event happening in early January. So I don't know that we would be able to have additional information, but if you're talking about a special meeting to talk about the information that's in here,
Yeah,
that's different. That is different and could possibly done in an hour or two meeting somehow, if we could find the time. But it would have to be the full commission coming into the office and all that
Would
stuff.
it would have to be
Yeah.
a full commission meeting
Yeah.
with presence, physical presence.
Yes,
So
it would.
I'm less excited about asking for, I'm not proposing that.
I'm just laying out your options.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I'm not saying I want that. I just want to make sure that we have a legislative agenda and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to be able to vote for one.
Well, we have one now.
Would we want to,
And if I'm alone on this, don't wait for me. Go ahead.
staff will make an assessment.
or there's
If
questions
that's
that we
all
could-
right.
that staff can answer. For the couple of
Sure.
commissioners that still have questions, and we could just do a phone call and see if that,
We can have a special meeting in early January, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't adopt this report
We're
now.
going to. A motion to approve the report of the 9 legislative matters that we are, that the committee has recommended that we present to the legislature. Commissioner Cardozo and Commissioner James seconds.
I have a question.
Sure.
So are we suggesting that rather than, are you suggesting, rather than approve this today, we have a meeting in early January to decide whether there are additional things that might replace some of our priorities?
That was my thought. I'm too conscious of the possibility that I'm alone on this to want to suggest it. I guess I was floating it to see if anybody else thought it would be helpful. I plan to vote, I plan to abstain on this vote. I don't feel I can vote on these 9 items without having thought through what choices about excluding items were made. So if that's going to be a problem for others, then I would be happy to work in January to do that, but I'm not.
In response, I think it's fair to say that this is what we previously agreed to. It's nothing other than,
that we discussed.
putting a new set of wheels on it and giving it to the legislature. If there are other things that you think that should be on there, I know there's one I put in and there's one that you put in that the committee didn't get to. Perhaps they'll get to it. But bottom line is we have 9 solid proposals that have resulted in several of them being put into legislation. And not succeeding for whatever reason, but that's a different story. We have the proposal of the committee, which did an excellent job. Motion to approve. Oh, we did that already.
Correct.
Is there any other discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve the report of the legislative committee, please raise your hands.
I,
Opposed? Opposed? Abstentions?
I'll abstain.
You're abstaining?
So you're 4, right, Edwards? You're 4?
Yes.
Oh, put your hand up for abstentions.
Nancy, which way are you?
So it
I'm
passes.
abstaining.
With-
It
Okay.
passes 6
So
to,
it's 6-4, 0 against, 2 abstain.
so it passed.
Passed.
6-0-2. Meeting for the others?
Well,
Do you want a special meeting for the other ones?
that would have,
Why don't we have a separate discussion?
Yeah.
that would be the legislative.
So maybe not just set up a call,
Informal
with Commissioner
discussion.
Ayers and Commissioner Brogan, if you'd like it, and talk through
Yeah.
whatever questions you have about the other thing.
I think before proposing a special meeting, that would be a good idea. We might be able to resolve.
Yes, yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Is there any other new or other business for us to address today? Seeing none, I'll repeat my best wishes from the commission to those who are listening and to our staff. We hope that everybody has a very happy and healthy holiday season and a wonderful new year. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Commissioner Terrence and nobody, Commissioner Cardozo.
Are we
All in
taking the train?
We're not quite out yet. Just waiting for you. All clear?
All in favor of the motion to adjourn?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. With the thanks of the chair.